The year of 2022 brought a significant amount of change to the universe of Pokemon, from the games entering a more open world, to the anime shifting away from Ash Ketchum, all the way to important figures departing from Game Freak altogether. The important word of the year is obviously change, and for so much to happen in just 1 year's time, it begs the question, is Pokemon changing too much?
Well, we can definitely say how we feel on the matter because this is ultimately a Goldilocks type of beat. Some will say Pokemon's changed too little, some will say that it's changed too much, and others will say the amount of change is just right. I think a good place to start is with Ash Ketchum. This is such a weird subject because so many people just felt like his adventure was coming to an end soon, even before the World Coronation series took place. However, during the finals when Pikachu saw the visions of its friends while battling, giving it the strength to pull through and beat Leon's Charizard, securing Ash's victory, it pretty much felt like it was a done deal. He was the champion of the world. Surely his adventure had to end here. However, I had a really different idea in mind. Once Scarlet and Violet came out with the themes of forging your own path and many students deciding to never take on Victory Road, it made me think that Ash could have possibly found new meaning in what it meant to be a Pokemon master beyond battling. Then an anime executive came out with an interview stating Satoshi-kun's journeys weren't over yet, leading to a sense of security. That only lasted for about a week or so, as they stated that he would be getting 11 episodes to wrap up his and Pikachu's story and moving on to 2 new protagonists for the Scarlet and Violet era of things. So yeah, after 25 years, they finally did it. Ash will no longer be the main character of the Pokemon anime, and it leaves me not knowing how to feel. On one hand, I commend Pokemon for trying something new, but on the other, growing up with Ash, regardless of not being a religious watcher of the anime on a weekly basis, has left me feeling a bit sad to see him go. I just felt like he and Pikachu would always be there every week. It kind of reminds me of when Steve went to college on Blue's Clues. Things have to change, but sometimes it can be a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's important to understand that change is sort of necessary and natural with everything in life. No one thing can stay the same forever. Either it changes like we're getting with Ash moving on from the anime, or a change where the anime is no longer existing at all. It sort of reminds me of a video we did not long ago about the anime outlasting the games. I suppose, if nothing else, the games ended up outliving Ash. It is interesting, though, that we've had 2 super different things occur on the Pokemon world that changed basically everything this year. Ash is retiring, and the games have gone to an open world. Now, while the feelings of Ash moving on from the anime will no doubt make the majority of people sad, it's funny just how excited and optimistic an open-world Pokemon game has made people feel. It's sort of the night and day reactions of change, you know? However, I want to talk a little bit more about Ash before we dive too deep into Game Freak's changes to the 9th generation. When we think about what Ash has done over these 2.5 decades, it's fair to see why his adventure has no reason to continue on. I mean, he never claimed he was going to capture every single Pokemon, and I think that Go's character arc and journeys was supposed to scratch that itch of just seeing a ton of Pokemon captured. This pretty much took Ash off the hook, and from that aspect of becoming a Pokemon master. Meaning turning into the top champion was all that was really required of him. I can't really blame him for retiring from being the protagonist when he accomplished so much, but answer me this, Collector. Is it fair to believe at this current moment that Ash's appearances in the anime are really coming to a close?
I mean, I suppose it is entirely possible he gets a recurring miniseries around him. Pokemon has done a handful of things like that with the likes of Pokemon Chronicles, Origins, Generations, Evolutions, Twilight Wings, Hisuian Snow, and the list could go on. So I don't think it's impossible for Ash to have his own thing going forward, but maybe depending on how big of a change they want to make, he could just end up as cameo fodder in this new series. Now, does this come in the form of him being a classmate with Rico and Roy, or is there a time skip involved with the reveal that Rico is his and Serena's daughter? Probably not. This will be a huge wait-and-see type of beat, but I really am on the side of not saying goodbye to him fully just yet. So with our old man feelings out of the way, let us commence with discussing the change happening in the games. This feels closer to unanimous amongst Pokemon fans, as I think most people wanted Pokemon to move in the open world direction for a while now, with the desire only intensifying after the release of Breath of the Wild. Now, it hasn't come without its flaws, as consistently inconsistent frame rate issues are present within the games, along with various bugs and visual glitches, but when that isn't taken into consideration, most everyone is pleased with Scarlet and Violet. Character, story, designs, music, all top-notch, and Pokemon running on all cylinders. Naturally, we had a small taste of that earlier in the year with Legends Arceus, but both of them were very different enough experiences that it's really hard to compare the two, and I think that's a very good thing. Being the fan I am, I've been pleased with every release to date, regardless of flaws, because of what I look for in Pokemon, or really just in games in general. But people have long wanted Game Freak to shake up the formula a bit, and I'd say producing two big franchise-changing games in the same year, no less, are steps in the right direction. And I can only imagine that as time goes on and adjustments are made, this is going to be a winning ticket for Pokemon going forward.
I too am a big fan of the changes Pokemon has made. If we look beyond technical things and focus in on the ideas and concepts, they're great regardless of how they're executed. There are things that need to be fine-tuned. I think the games need level scaling in the future if the open world remains a thing. And of course I think quality of life features need to be re-implemented from Legends Arceus, like being able to release Pokemon by the box full, among other things. I agree though, the changes for Scarlet and Violet were warranted and really beloved. But it seriously strikes me as wild that within just a half year's time, we'll have an entirely new formula for the video games and a complete character overhaul of the anime come April. The crazy thing though, this isn't even all the changes the franchise has planned. I think we can take some time to address something the two of us very much care about. A huge change to the trading card game. The TCG is no stranger to big mechanic changes with each generation, as we've had new takes on ultra-rare cards since the X and Y series of sets. But now we're returning to the EX series of cards that we haven't gotten since the third generation. That's a huge return, as the EX sets like Holon Phantoms and Dragon Frontiers are among some of the most expensive in the realm of trading card games in general. I think just from seeing the lowercase EX on products again, you could see yet another major bump in attention for a game that already has everyone playing and collecting.
Even with the cards being different in terms of looks, attacking power, and HP, it's nice to see a change also coming in the shape of returning to a previous concept that just worked very well. But I think we should now move on into our last subject of change being the shakeups happening at the corporate level. It was already such a huge shock when we all found out that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl was not going to be developed by Game Freak, but instead by ILCA. But then finding out just a handful of months later that both Masuda-san and James Turner were leaving Game Freak to pursue other endeavors, with Masuda-san taking a broader scope at the Pokemon Company as a creative fellow, and James Turner starting up his own company with a very cool looking game in the Plucky Squire. These were undoubtedly two very well-known figures in Pokemon. Masuda-san literally started the company with both Tajiri-san and Sugimori-san, so seeing him step away, regardless of still being involved with the franchise, is just so shocking. Then with James Turner, he became popular in recent years with his presence on Twitter, willingness to talk about the aspects of his job, and of course the fantastic character designs he's made. Clearly this feeling was the case within Game Freak as well, as he eventually worked himself up to having the title of art director on Sword and Shield. Now, Scarlet and Violet's art director ended up being Ibe-san, who has been with the company for quite a while as well, and clearly has done a fantastic job. However, it does make me wonder, had James Turner not left to pursue his own company, would he still have been the art director for the 9th generation?
I'm a huge fan of Game Freak choosing to trust other companies with getting stuff done. While BDSP was a bit of a mixed bag for plenty of people, I still think giving ILCA an opportunity was a great thing. We're getting to a point where we might not need to lose out on too much simply because they're presumably only going to do this sort of thing with remakes. Now, I mean, if you really only care about playing a faithful remake, that'll definitely be good news for you. Though if you're expecting them to be really expanded upon like what Oras and Heart Gold and Soul Silver were, you'll probably always be disappointed. What I think is a bit bigger from what we just talked about, though, is the departure of James Turner, who has become so instrumental over the last few years. It's a big change for Game Freak, but it seems that Mana Ibe really came up alongside him on mainline Pokemon games, so she's probably well poised to keep things running smoothly in this position, like he was. I think it's a fine change, but I definitely am disappointed with Masuda moving into a different role in the franchise, as I feel he probably was a nice presence over there in the studio. However, at least he didn't leave Pokemon altogether. So I guess now we should probably try to answer our own question. Is Pokemon changing too much? We just went over 4 big changes, and I'll say right off the bat, it's certainly a fair bit of changing, but I don't think it's too much at all.
I concur. The only real change I'm not sure how to feel about is Ash stepping aside in the anime, but perhaps upon watching when the new series arrives in April will give me an entirely new thought on the matter. But everything else we mentioned seems to be in a direction that's still exciting, with a mixture of freshness as well as a sense of familiarity needed to not just make it feel different altogether. And while I feel it isn't too little, I would also say that I want them to take some of what we talked about here and ramp it up even further. Let other companies develop more mainline RPGs, take risks with unique concepts, and continue building on new stuff that we've come to love over this past year. But tell us, what do you all think? Has Pokemon gone too far, or should they take it up a notch? Let the both of us know in the comment section below. And with that said, I am Collector Dexter.
And I'm primarily a director.
And we'll see the lot of you next time.